The enemy never expected it to start with a song. They thought humanity would announce itself with weapons, with fire streaking across the stars, with colonies marching under banners and war drums. But no, it was music. A single broadcast carried by a fragile probe across the void, a melody wrapped inside a machine so small the galaxy barely noticed it. And yet, when that song reached alien ears, it changed everything. Not because of war, not because of conquest, but because of the thing aliens feared most: chaos. Patterns that weren't patterns. Order that wasn't order. A human voice singing against silence, defiant, fragile, infinite. And in the end, the galaxy learned the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon was never our ships, never our guns, never our hunger to explore. It was our ability to dream aloud. Before we dive into this story, if you're enjoying these journeys into humanity's place among the stars, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss the next tale. Now let's step into the silence of deep space, and the gift we never meant to give. It began the way most human things do, with curiosity. The Voyager probes had been flung out long before faster-than-light travel, long before we had even met our neighbors among the stars. They carried our fingerprints, our maps, our greetings, and our music. The music was never meant as a weapon, never meant as a signal of power. It was a gesture of hope, an echo of who we were when we were still young, still unsure, still reaching. Decades passed. Humanity rose from planetary children to starfarers, and then, long after we had forgotten what we had sent, aliens found it. The Kalari were the first, an old, methodical species, their minds shaped by numbers, their societies built on the worship of symmetry and predictability. To them, the universe was a grid of perfect equations, every orbit predictable, every frequency measurable. They had survived millennia by cutting chaos out of their lives, and then one of their deep listening posts intercepted a signal. At first, they thought it was interference, random noise, a malfunction. But the patterns did not fade. They repeated. They flowed, they twisted and rose and fell, violating every principle the Kalari had trusted for generations. The signal was decoded, and what they heard was a human voice singing. The Kalari panicked. To their minds, this was no art. This was structured chaos, a weaponized algorithm designed to infect thought. The harmonics bent rules they believed unbreakable. The intervals between notes opened mathematical gaps that should not exist. Some of their scientists whispered that this song was not sound at all, but a form of warfare, a lattice of frequencies designed to unravel order itself. In the days that followed, entire Kalari fleets were scrambled. A council was convened. The words spoken that day would ripple across the galaxy. A new species has risen. They wield patterns that are not patterns. They create symmetry where none exists. They are dangerous. News spread. The Varun, whose entire culture was built on logic, declared that humanity must be monitored. The Thrine, masters of engineered sound, accused us of hiding some new weapon disguised as music. But something strange happened. Fear gave way to fascination. The Kalari scientists who studied the song began to change. They listened again, trying to understand, and found themselves moved. One admitted in a secret report that they wept when they heard the final notes of a Bach cello suite. Another said their dreams began to bend in unfamiliar directions, shapes they had never imagined, thoughts they had never dared. One by one, the walls cracked. The galaxy had never known art. They had known war, trade, empire, mathematics, conquest, but never the fragile human impulse to put pain and joy into sound. Never the idea of creating something not to serve, not to calculate, not to win, but simply because it mattered. The Kalari called it dangerous because they were right. It was dangerous because once a mind learned to hear music, It could never go back. The first crisis erupted on Kesh Prime. A group of young Kalari tuned the broadcast into the city's public arrays. For the first time, millions heard a human song not as a weapon, but as beauty. Crowds stopped in the middle of their day. Machines paused, equations forgotten, as voices from a distant, unknown world sang of longing and love. The authorities tried to shut it down, but it was too late. The people demanded more. Other species followed. The Vorik, who had never even developed the concept of rhythm, began stamping their claws in imitation of drums. The Shur, whose voices were nothing but hisses and tones, began to imitate human harmony in shrieking choirs that startled their elders, and everywhere rulers panicked, because they saw what music was doing. It was uniting the young. It was dissolving obedience. It was reminding entire civilizations that there was more to existence than order and survival. The galaxy feared us, but not for our fleets, not for our weapons, for our songs. Humanity learned of all this by accident. A trading ship stumbled into Kalari space and found itself surrounded by vessels demanding explanation. The crew were dragged before alien leaders and accused of deploying harmonic destabilization fields. The captain laughed. He didn't mean to be disrespectful. He simply couldn't help it. "It's not a weapon," he said. "It's just music." The Kalari did not believe him. "Then why does it make us feel?" one of them demanded, trembling. "Why does it change the shape of our thoughts? Why does it tear holes in everything we thought was solid?" The human had no answer. Because how could you explain art to someone who had never known it? How could you explain that music was not meant to control, but to share? But the truth was already out. It spread like fire. Human musicians were suddenly the most sought-after beings in the galaxy. Concerts were treated like weapons demonstrations. Every song was analyzed for hidden algorithms, every melody treated like a map to some deeper truth. And yet, as aliens listened, fear turned to something else: reverence. For the first time, entire civilizations realized there was a dimension to existence they had never touched. Some began to worship the songs as holy revelations. Others called humans the sound makers, the ones who spoke in chaos and beauty. But something deeper stirred. Because once you teach someone to hear music, they begin to make their own. And so, alien choirs were born. The Vorik built drums from starship hulls. The Kalari tuned crystal lattices to resonate in haunting, aching tones. The Thrine, once the galaxy's most rigid thinkers, became poets. And all of them, in quiet whispers, admitted the same thing. They had feared humanity because we could destroy. But they revered humanity because we could create. The great turning point came during the siege of Vera. The Vorik armadas had encircled a Kalari world, demanding surrender. For days, tension rose, until at last a lone human ship appeared in orbit. It carried no weapons strong enough to tip the balance. But its crew carried something else. They opened the comm channels, and they sang. A single human voice, cracked, imperfect but strong, poured into every ship, every city, every listening ear. The melody rose over the silence of war, drowning engines, silencing orders. Soldiers wept in their cockpits. Civilians fell to their knees. Even the Vorik admiral, hardened by centuries of conquest, found his claws trembling. The battle ended without a shot, because no one wanted to fire. They only wanted to listen. That was the day the galaxy realized humanity's true power. Not to kill, not to conquer, but to remind even the coldest heart what it meant to feel alive. And that, my friends, was the gift we never meant to give. A song born on Earth, carried across the stars, misunderstood as a weapon, until the galaxy realized it was something far more powerful. But let me ask you this. If you could send one song into space to represent all of humanity, which one would you choose? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm excited to see what you'd pick. If you enjoyed this story, Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps this channel grow. And remember, somewhere out there the stars might already be listening.